Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank furlough. It's Friday, the 4th of September. Really good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. By us, I mean, of course, myself and the inimitable Jackie Mount, who's here to provide all that technical advice that she is so renowned for. And I gather from other people at a meeting she was in with HMRC earlier this week that she more than holds her own, and was certainly, everybody was sitting back and listening to everything Jackie had to say. So highly respected. So yeah, she's not just a technical advisor, she's an ICB technical advisor. So that's great. Hi, Jackie.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Great. I hope that most of you have picked up the fact that we're starting at 2 today due to popular demand because of kids back to school. We're trying it at 2 at the moment. I'm not suggesting this is where we will finally settle, but seeing what people think of it. Those of you who have missed it, you're picking it up on YouTube. Sorry, we did tell everybody it was coming up, so look out for that. Certainly next week will be at 2 o'clock. And as I say, what we'll do then is send out a wider consultation to see what we're doing. Because as we come towards autumn and getting in towards the winter months, we're actually doing a few more programs back towards what we used to do. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff lined up. We'll tell you about that in due course. So Jackie, other than upsetting everybody at HMRC, what else has your week entailed this week? What else have you...
Yeah, I do love upsetting HMRC. Just I picked something up on that somebody said that I completely disagree with, so I'm afraid never backward in coming forward, me.
I think it's good though, because I know that, you know, in the meetings I've always been to, most people sit and say nothing, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, come on, say something. And then as soon as we say something, they say, oh yeah, and they all sit there nodding, you know, well, yeah. But
I never forget, I was introduced to somebody at a meeting some years ago, and the response was, oh, you're Jackie Mount. I'm not sure whether that was a good or a bad thing.
I think it is a good thing, Jackie.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, just a few things to go through a la COVID-19 today, some date reminders. Eat Out to Help Out finished on Monday. I happened to pop up to our local farm shop where they have a lovely little restaurant there very early in the morning, well, about 9 o'clock in the morning, to get some vegetables, and they were just gearing up for the day, and they were completely booked out from 9 o'clock in the morning when the first breakfast people turned up to when they closed at 5. So yeah, they were, you know, sort of saying this is great, but ooh, too much work. The deadline for claiming the grants back is the 30th of September. So you only have, or your clients only have, until the end of this month to get those claims in. And I'm sure once we get to there, we'll see exactly how many meals were bought and how much has been reclaimed. I think it was, I forget how much the figures that was I gave you last week. Now that we're into September, Corona Job Virus Scheme, CJRS2 for the Employed Furlough Scheme changes again. Remember now that you still have to pay your furloughed staff 80% of their normal wage, but you can only claim 70% back. So basically what employers are having to do now is they're having to pay 10% of the furloughed wage as well as the worked hours, plus the employer's national insurance, plus the employer's pension contributions. And then on the 1st of October, for the last month, the contribution goes up to 20%, government drops to 60%. Before anybody asks, I do not have any information yet about what's going to happen when the funding stops and people are perhaps involved in local lockdowns, because I think that's something the government's going to have to actually come up with some ideas about what's happening, because if businesses are closing down because of local lockdowns, and this is happening very, very fast, when it happens quickly, excuse me, we'll see what happens with what sort of funding the government may or may not bring in. The one thing I did pick up earlier this week, just as an aside, is the EU rules that I was reading says that all funding under these job retention schemes has to finish on the 31st of December. But I did pick up something that said that Germany is going to extend it for possibly another year with their job funding for furloughing. So I'm not quite sure how that works with EU and what's going to happen to us when we finish transition on the 1st of January. So we'll just watch the space on that. We'll just see if there's any other funding coming out. There is one, Carol's just put up a question on there about Kickstart jobs. I'm going to talk about Kickstart in a moment. The second SACE application grants are open. They opened on 17th of August. The closing date for applying for those is the 19th of October, so you have a while yet. If your clients are affected and you're helping them to do the claims, don't forget we can't do the claims for our clients, they have to do it themselves. Or if you're claiming for yourselves, do be very careful to follow the guidelines as to what constitutes affected income and affected expenses. So that's really all I had, just those things on COVID-19. Nothing much is going on. Haven't picked up anything else. If anybody else has picked anything else up, do pop some questions up or something up on the chat. Carol Gibson's put up a question in our question and answer about, is the only option for a small sole trader to offer a Kickstart job to join with a local authority or charity? One of my clients would like to offer 6 jobs and is looking to join with other small traders in the town, but they don't want to form a limited company. Now, what the Kickstart is you can offer jobs to 16 to 24-year-olds who are currently on universal credit. And if you can offer them a job, the government will pay you at the moment 100% of the minimum wage for 25 hours a week, plus the employer's national insurance contributions, and the government will fund those posts. The problem is, as Carol said, you have to have a minimum of 30 jobs that you can offer. Now, if you can't offer 30 jobs, if you go onto the gov.uk website and look at Kickstart, it will tell you the criteria for applying for the grants, which are open. I think if they're not open now, they'll be open fairly soon. I think they're actually open now. And there is a link there to what to do if you are a small employer, and there are ways of linking companies to businesses together so that you can actually apply for grants by working with sort of an individual who's perhaps going to organise these groups of people and then claim on your behalf and distribute the funds, as I understand it. But I haven't gone any further into that. Unfortunately, Carol, I ran out of time before we started in actually reading that. But if you look at the Kickstart programme, it comes up on the search engines. Log into the gov.uk website with it, and it will give you a lot of information there. And if anybody has anything else that they want to know, pop in some emails. If you're watching this after the event, pop some emails into us and I'll try and answer those for you. So that's one form of help. The other form of help that is available to anybody is to look at taking on an apprentice. Now, there are additional grants. There are currently grants to take on an apprentice. If you take on someone who is 16 to 18 as an apprentice, you can claim £1,000 a year towards the cost of doing that. Or if they are under 25, but with some sort of health/education plan in place, then you can also claim a £1,000 grant for those as well. The new additional funding is that if you take on somebody between the ages of 16 and 24, you can claim £2,000 a year, and that's in addition, or you can claim £2,000, sorry, that's in addition to the original 1,000. And if they are 25 or over, you can claim £1,500. So that might be another option to look at taking on apprentices. But of course, if you take on apprentices, you've then got the on cost and the training. And don't forget, with an apprentice, you have to give them 20% of their time in training. They can't work for you, can only work for you, say, 4 days a week. They do 1 day a week's training. You've got to probably contribute towards the cost of their education, their training, their exams, that sort of thing. And but the grants might well go towards covering that. So that at the moment is all I've got, which I've come up with new as far as what's come out from the government. I mentioned last week about the transition in EU VAT, and I was looking for some people to join a focus group that might be involved in import-export VAT. And I've had 2 people contact me. So far, there may still be more it coming through to me through the email system, but I've had 2 people that I've contacted. So thank you, those 2. I won't mention your names, you know who you are. Thank you for that. And the other thing that's happening, which is the meeting that I had yesterday, was the first of a number of meetings I've got coming up with HMRC on the changes to making tax digital. As you are aware, making tax digital for VAT becomes mandated for all VAT registered companies from April 2022, and self-assessment comes into the making tax digital. That's for the self-employed and property owners who rent out properties. Comes in April 2023. Now, the reason I had a go at HMRC yesterday was that a number of things were said, but what I found frustrating is that they were saying, as they will always do, that the professional bodies are there, they have these meetings with us, and it's great because they can take feedback from us and they can inform government's decision. Well, unfortunately, I've been involved with these particular NTD groups for about 5 years now, and I have to say, nothing has changed since they first brought out NTD for self-assessment. They're still looking at the threshold for reporting this at £10,000 turnover a year, which is actually below the threshold for paying tax anyway, because it's less than the current personal allowance, if that is your only source of income. And we're still arguing about whether or not what's going to happen with uploading adjustments and all sorts of things like that, and capital allowances and things like that. There's a lot of work going on that. What I'm looking for at the moment is a couple of people who perhaps have NTD clients for that, who have got clients who are currently not in the NTD system, but will have to move into the NTD system when it becomes mandated. And we are looking at the additional costs that it's going to be for your clients as they move into NTD. Now, that's going to vary depending on whether they're just on a manual system, they're using spreadsheets because they're quite a simple business, or whether they're currently using software, whether they're using your software, which is already geared up to do NTD if that's what they want to do. But we're looking at finding some information on what you think the additional cost might be in both hardware, software, training, your time, and anything else. So I will be coming out to you. I might put a plea out through the newsletter or something like that. But that's me, that's my week.
I think, Jackie, just to add to that, one of the things that we want to get at very shortly is a questionnaire to our members, because we want to look at the whole aspect of NTD, but in relation to making tax a little simpler. And one of the things that we will be asking is, do you think it would be, or do our members feel it would be feasible to collect tax other than annually? And I know this has been coming for some time, and some of our members have always been for it, but other equal number have been against it. So it's where you get a company that doesn't pay its tax, obviously, until sometime later, but then finds that it's struggling to have that. Would it help if it was able to pay a certain amount on account, based purely on the accounts provided by their bookkeeper? Now, I know in certain businesses that they are very seasonal and they could get caught out with this, and it's not quite as simple as it sounds, but it's a question of, with your help, do you think clients would be able to do this?
Well, I think at the moment, don't forget, there is a payment on account anyway. The biggest gap, the biggest issue, I think, with paying tax is the very first year, because if you start 1 April, you go from April to March, your first tax bill isn't due until the following January. So it's 21 months after you start trading.
Yeah.
Once you've paid that, the trouble then is that if your profits are over £1,000, which they're quite likely to be in the first year, if you're lucky, you might have made a loss, but if not, if you've made a profit, you have to pay 50% of that up front anyway. So the first tax bill is going to be very, very large, or could be substantially large. And if people hadn't prepared for that, it does come as a nasty shock. After that, you pay every 6 months anyway. And at the end of the tax year, you work out what's owed, you take off what's been paid, and then you add on 50% for the next year. So I think we discussed this in the early NTD days, and everyone was saying, oh, everyone's going to pay their tax earlier. But actually, it's only that first 21 months, because after that, you are paying your tax every 6 months anyway, and it will bring you into line with the employed. However, there is the problem of allowances, capital allowances, and when do you buy? If you pay all your tax up front and then suddenly decide that you're going to buy some large assets at the end of the year because you've got a bit of money left over, then you're going to pay tax that you won't need to pay. So it's an awful lot involved in paying tax up front. But I'm sure at some stage it will come to it, yeah.
Yeah, it always sounds to me that tax simplification just means they're going to complicate things even more. But we'll see. But there is a lot going on at the moment. I mean, Jacquie has just submitted our answers to a white paper that was out about tax agents and the fact that there are a lot of unregulated tax agents out there. You know, anybody basically can set up a shop somewhere and call themselves a tax agent, and people flood in and think they're getting good advice. And one of the things they're looking at is, you know, the number of people who aren't a member of a professional body. It's about 30% of the total are not, but they, between them, are responsible, we're told, for about 70% of all the problems. So the good thing for us as a professional body, therefore, is that it would appear that if you are with a professional body, you are less likely to make errors. Now, how the government is going to handle this, we're not sure, but you know, Jacquie, on behalf of ICB, has made a submission about what we think should happen. Yes, we think they should be members of the professional body, but then the question is the professional body looking after its members properly? And you end up with something like the regulation that we have to impose upon you because of the money laundering regulations. You know, are you actually doing your job correctly? The fact that you pass an exam to do this is a boost, as a lot of people are just self-taught. But then on top of that, are you going to keep up to date with everything that's happening? Are you actually going to do your job properly? And that's where our supervision again comes in. So we're waiting to see how that goes. And then actually next week, she'll be doing another report, which is on the tax avoidance schemes. And this is one of the big things that we always hear the headlines when somebody like Garry or whoever, you know, and other ex-footballers do exist, haven't paid their tax, or are they're part of a membership of a management company or something rather than they're avoiding things. Or I think a couple of footballers pay low tax because they have their image rights. You know, Jacquie and I both tried that for ourselves because of our image, but apparently that doesn't work. So, but, you know, it's things like this, you know, and I think the government is quite rightly saying, look, we've been doling out some money, so let's now have a look at those people who are bending the system. And quite often they won't be illegal. But I think the years of them trying to hit you with the moral standpoint is disappearing, and I think they want something which is a bit more hard hitting. So that's certainly coming off. The other thing is that next Thursday I'm taking part in a roundtable with Companies House talking about their service and the way Companies House is going to evolve over the next, I think it's their 5-year plan. What I'd be interested in to hear from any of you is what you think of Companies House. We get very good reports from most of you that their company check service, for example, is pretty good. Now, as you know, ICB, as part of its AML Online, now automatically links you into that. So if you put in a limited company, we bring that information down on our API straight into your form where you're filling in your due diligence and risk assessment. That's a free service at the moment, so you're not charged for it. I'm always a bit skeptical when government asks how well we think the service is doing, that they're probably wanting to start charging us for it. And there have been rumours, but nothing confirmed as yet. But if you've got any cause for concern about them, or you think they're doing a really good job, if you could please let me know. And I would like to hear from you if you think you're doing a good job, because when we ask questions like this, it's normally the people who've got a few problems that come back to us. And it would be nice to have a balanced view. Don't have time to get out a questionnaire for that. But as I said, we will be getting out something about the structure of tax, etc., because that's a little bit more ongoing and a little bit out. But you will recall that very early on in our series of ICB TV, not long after we looked down, we had Bill Dodwell on, who was from the Office for Tax Simplification. I mean, his name keeps cropping up a lot now in the reports that are going into government, and people are listening to this. So, yeah, I think we got a good signposting from Bill as to the way he thinks things are going, and it may well be correct. But so anything that you can let me have on that, that would be very useful. Jacquie, you mentioned the eating out, more than 100 million meals during August.
Yeah.
So I think that went particularly well. Most of the restaurants in my area, I don't know if they are in yours, are saying we've extended this for another month or something like that, because I think that extra trade has helped. It's reminded people what they enjoyed about eating out. And so, yeah, I think they'll be footing the bill for that one, obviously. But if it gets people sitting at their tables, then perhaps that's what they're looking at. I must admit, life seems to be getting a bit noisier and busier out here in the centre of London. The offices are still looking very empty, but apart from that, the information I'm getting back at the moment is that I haven't been there myself, but the tubes are starting to fill up again. Public transport is filling up. Certainly there are a lot of cars, probably more cars actually at the moment, but I think that's probably because a lot of people are choosing to travel by car than go onto public transport so that they can keep themselves in their own little bubble for a while. But again, always happy to hear what's going on in your area if everybody wants to give us some of that information, because it's good to know how things are going on. And then, if we're informed, we can see what's going on.
Just going back onto those two reports, Garry, I think one of the things that came across to me, and also the one that we did a couple of weeks ago on the construction industry, and I know my CIS body put an awful lot of work into that with me, is that they're having to set all these investigations up and all these safeguards because of this small percentage of individuals and professional fraudsters who try to find ways around to buck the system. And apparently, particularly to do with tax avoidance, the bulk of the advisors and promoters, you have to have a promoter of the scheme. And the vast majority of these hide behind a quite complex system of umbrella organisations and companies, most of which are set up and registered abroad. And HMRC have such a complicated routine that they have to follow. And it can take up to 2 years or more. Well, the maximum time is 2 years, but they have to take 2 years in order to be able to put a stop and to advertise that these schemes are not working and they're not allowable. And the problems that they reach at the moment is that there are a lot of legal loopholes that these promoters can go through to delay the process beyond 2 years. And then all that's happened is they shut down the company, open up another company, do the same thing through the new company, and HMRC have to start all over again. So unfortunately, those of us who are good and honest and true have to do an awful lot of work and jump through an awful lot of hoops just to rule out the few that aren't. And again, it's the vast majority of people who do this, in fact, hardly any of them that promote this, have been members of registered bodies. And I did read on one of the accounting newsletters this week that one of the, I think it was in the document, there was a fairly large accountancy firm, not a professional body, but actually a group of well set up accountants fell foul of this because they didn't do sufficient due diligence to pick this up, and received a pretty hefty fine because they had allowed one of their slightly recalcitrant members to get involved in this and didn't do the due diligence. So watch this space.
We've had a couple of things through on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Barbara Burake, please excuse me, Barbara, if I haven't got that quite right, and send it me phonetically if you wish. But Barbara Burake or Burake. I have read that there is a grant for financial advice, including accountancy fees and equipment. Does anyone know how to apply for this? I did mention this earlier, Barbara, not today, sorry, earlier, I can't remember, last week. Yes, there is a scheme out there. It mentions accountancy and financial advice. Obviously, bookkeeping is part of accountancy. You apply for it. Funnily enough, it comes from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and it was announced by Simon Clarke MP. and he is also the Minister for Regional Growth. Now, what it is, small and medium-sized businesses can access grants between 1,000 and 5,000 for new equipment and technology and specialist advice. Now, I know a lot of software companies have been jumping straight in there, but it's all very well giving the person the tools. If they can't use it, they still need a bookkeeper. So yes, we need to do that. And I was just I'm scrolling through this at the moment. It's under gov.uk, and there is a link to it here somewhere. I'll try and find that. The support will be funded by government with no obligation for businesses to contribute financially. It's provided to businesses, it's supported by the England European Financial Development, Regional Development Fund, as part of the European Structural Investment Funds Growth Programme. And if you go onto the web, it gives you a list of the hubs that are using. They're called growth hubs, and it's, it is available. Your advice is covered by that, and that's great. So please, if you want any more information, try gov.uk and put in growth hub, or I just started off with funding for advice. Then we've got Claire Allen, who's talking about the Kickstart scheme. We have been asked by a client whether our practice would consider forming a group to enable local small businesses access to the scheme. Is this a good idea?
If I can come in on that one, Gary, I've just got the information up on my other screen here, because what you have to do, it is in the gov.uk website, but I think this is more general. If you want to become a representative, you can set yourself up as a representative, but you actually have to apply to be registered. And it says here that the representative of the group, so Claire, if you wanted to make your practice the representative and bring in your clients to set this up, the responsibilities of a representative. The representative must have experience of managing partnership agreements with third parties and have robust financial and governance processes to manage their application. Now, neither of those two should be an issue for your practice, I would think, Claire. The third party, it's a question of how you work, if you work with third parties before. And it says here, we are currently not accepting applications from representatives who do not have this experience, and we will provide further information in future on how these groups can become a representative. So I think, again, this is just opened up. It's very early days. I'm not sure, certainly I can't advise you as to what you should do, but it's a question of whether you think that your practice will fulfill those two. Certainly the second one, the robust financial structures, I know will be there.
Well, I'm presuming that Claire wrote that about 10 minutes ago, so she's probably signed up already. But she does tend to move quite quickly. Yes, certainly, Claire, if you think that this is something that ICB can help you with to, look at this in more detail, and if you think that bookkeepers should actually be doing something like this, yeah, very, very happy to advise. Otherwise, good luck with your deliberations. I'm sure you've got the wherewithal to do it. And so good luck.
If you scroll on down through that document on HMRC, it does tell you who to contact for further information. And in the southeast, it's southeast.kickstart at DWP, so Department of Work and Pensions.gov.uk. And the regions are West Midlands, East and Central Midlands, London and Essex. North Central includes West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, Cumbria and Lancashire. North East includes North Yorkshire, East Yorkshire, Humberside and North Lincolnshire. North West includes Great Manchester, Merseyside and Cheshire. South West and South East. So those regions, contact them. So it's the region.kickstart@dwp.gov.uk, and see if you can get some information, application, look at exactly what processes you're going to have to do in place to do that. Fortunately, if you've got clients that you think, want to do that, then that's fine. And I think that's also going back to Carol Gibson's first question, that might help you, Carol, as well, if you think, and it may very well be that if you are not a large practice yourself, maybe you can get together through the branches, and perhaps a couple of you get together if you think this might be worthwhile getting there. We could perhaps set something up and try and guide you and help you through that. So that might be that would be a good service for our members to offer, actually.
Yeah. I mean, Claire's come back and said, not signed up yet, Garry. We'll do some more research. Thank you both. She's just gone off the boil since she got married, hasn't she, really? You know, she's not as quick as she was anyway.
Oh, you do skate on thin ice, Garry Carter. You really
I know, never mind. Good luck with that. I mean, the thing is that the areas that you're talking about are what we base our council structure on, which we have 2 members of council for each of the what used to be the old grant regions, which they seem to be amending a little bit at the moment, but they're very similar. So it could be that in combination, we could pull a couple of our members from each of those areas and do something nationally. But most of this stuff goes through local groups, and therefore, if I go into government, they're saying, oh, well, that's now been spent. Well, the money's gone. It's in the regions. You've got to go regionally and pick it up. So, yeah, it's a question of you each finding out what suits your area. But still. So that's good for that. So anyway, I can't go to Sussex branch for a while. But anyway, holiday pay query from, oh, I've got a number. I don't know what that is. Employee was paid overtime in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 in this tax year, but since week 5 has been on basic gross wages, no overtime. Do we have to take this overtime into account when calculating holiday pay this week?
My first answer to that is depending on the contract of employment. If holiday pay is a regular part of the contract, then yes, you probably do. And it also depends on whether they're on a flexible earnings or 0 hours contract. Now, if you go onto gov.uk and put in calculate holiday entitlement, it does give you all the rules and regulations, and there's probably a link there to working it out. I'm just actually going through that now. Yeah, I think that's the best thing to do, is to have a look at the calculating holiday pay on gov.uk, and then again, if you're not sure, come back to us on a one-to-one. Hope that helps.
Yeah. I mentioned before that we are adjusting the times a little bit now that kids have gone back to school, for many of you. Obviously, we don't know how long that will last. Hopefully, it's a firm thing now, and we can put COVID behind us. But yeah, we are sort of constantly watching the press to see what goes on. I mentioned to you before that ICB was going to look at the possibility of opening up the office, and then we had a spike in the area around our office in Southwark, so we decided not to bother with that. We're still toying with the idea of going back at some stage, because we've got 4 new members of staff, for example, who have only 3 of them have met each other. One of the new members of staff, Maddie, who's doing really good things, those of you who spoke to her on the phone, I've never even met yet. I've only seen her on Zoom. So I want to meet with her, I want to meet with the others. And I think particularly the younger people that we've got a batch of people now that have just started, 4 or 5 of them. They need that social interaction with their peers, and that's what it's about. So we are going to try and get back into the office, but I can't see it being a full-time thing for everybody. Jacquie has definitely said she's not coming this way at all, other than under some sort of duress, and we'll have to go to pressure or something or other, which is obvious. And I must admit, I'm finding it great that I can get up at 7 in the morning and start work immediately, then go and have a bit of breakfast, then go back in and do. I am finding it very, very full days, I have to say. And I was just saying this morning that this morning we've had 3 end-to-end Zoom meetings. Now, in the old days, I used to go to meetings and I'd be able to have a bit of a walk in between, have a cup of coffee, then go on to the next meeting, gather my thoughts. It doesn't happen anymore. One finishes, the next one starts. So it is busy times. Having said that, I've been able to meet a lot of you as members that I've never, ever met before. And, I've seen you on Zoom and talk to you and various things. So that's been fun. But we're keeping an eye on things and see how it goes. And funnily enough, we were talking about next November the 1st, not this coming November the 1st, the next one, which of course is our 25th anniversary. And we're doing lots of things for that. 3 of our new recruits are actually the same age as the Institute, and their birthday is next year. They all become 25 next year. So that's quite interesting. We're now employing people who were born in the year that we started this, which makes me suggest that we've been doing this a long time. But anyway, never mind. We've enjoyed every minute of it, he says. But anyway, it's...
yeah, I have to say, working from home it can be an acquired art. I've done it for many years, but I agree with you. Sometimes you end up working longer days because I'm someone, I have actually ventured into London. I had to come up, I was asked if I could escort somebody to an appointment last week. So I did actually come up on the train, but it was outside of Russia. And I have to say, the journey itself was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The train was quite empty. The underground was quite empty as well. We didn't do a very long journey, and there weren't that many people around the West End. But it is difficult working from home, and I think all our members who work from home, you have to be able to have a work routine. I'm very fortunate. When we bought this property, it had an office right at the end of the garden, tucked around the corner where no one else can see it. So I do actually toddle off to work in the mornings, and I go home for lunch, and then I come back in the afternoon. So once I've locked the office up, that's it. So it is a proper working day, but the hours can be very long when you're working at home.
Yeah, I'm hoping everybody else is working just as hard, Jackie. It'd be good to know. I've always been a big skeptic, and I've said it so many times on here before. I always think people are going to be walking around in their pajamas and putting their feet up. It's surprising. Some of them I think are walking around in their pajamas, but they are working, which is really, really good. So, you know, my skepticism has been unfounded. I think we're getting through a lot at the moment. And I know a lot of you members have been very pleased that even though we've had lockdown and everything else, you've still been able to get hold of everybody. One thing I would say is that the number of emails is absolutely going through the roof. I don't know whether you're sitting at home thinking, now what can I do? I know, I'll send an email out. It's all valid stuff, but sometimes it is taking us a little bit of time to get through to these things, you know, so bear with us. We will try and do what we can. So anyway, it is one of those things. It is good to hear from you. I think we've got a couple more people coming through on the chat line. Claire Allen, I'm boiling now. Oh dear. All right. Okay. A great time for Summit, 25th anniversary. Yeah, it is. And ICB has grown exponentially over those 25 years, bearing in mind it's all been self-generated by you, the members. We haven't had a huge amount of funding from anybody. In fact, we've had no funding from anybody outside. So I reckon we've done pretty well. We're now in 148 countries and places like Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, India, most of the former Soviet Union countries. We're pretty big. We've got big numbers out there. And we're hoping next year we're going to see a lot of those people coming over, taking it as a lifetime chance to visit London and come to conference at the same time. We occasionally get people coming over now, and those of you who came to the last live Inspire tour, which was in London, will know that I mentioned in there that one of the young ladies that came along was actually from the Philippines. She flew 6,666 miles to be with us. And I said, it's absolutely fantastic to see you, but why have you come all this way? She said, I was running short of my CPD quota for this year, and this gave me another 8 hours. So it just shows you the lengths people will go to be part of ICB and also to keep up with their quota on CPD, which is really good. Jackie, I think we're probably
everyone's very quiet this afternoon, so yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to tune in about half an hour's time.
Yeah, we've got quite a few online. We've kept our normal quota, I think. Yeah, we're not doing bad. Just a call out then, just a reminder, if you are involved in import-exports, or your clients are, and you're interested in joining a focus group to look at the VAT changes on transition at the end of the year, please email into member services and I will be in touch with you. Just a reminder, we do have to check you through the Professional Standards Board first, but then once you're squeaky clean, yeah, we'll see what we can do to help you. As I say, I've got 2 arrived with me so far. Anybody else interested, let me know, and I will get some questions out in the questionnaire about MTD costs. I think it's a good way of doing that.
Just a reminder here, apparently the last issue of the newsletter, August issue of the newsletter, quite a few of you were getting a bounce back and haven't seen it. So it has been resent this morning. That's because a few of you said that it hadn't come out. I'm not quite sure what that is. We've been having a few problems in London with the web, actually, with the internet. We're banging the biggest and best city in the world, but the internet doesn't work very well, I'm afraid. But one of the things in there, I've covered the number of clients over the COVID period. So we know that we've actually lost, and these are your clients, the businesses that you serve. 1,374 clients have been taken off your list of clients, but even in this really difficult time, the number of new clients is absolutely the record. So far, this is up until the end of August, 7,681 new clients. I mean, well done, everybody. This is really fantastic. Now, last year, we had a record ever number of new clients, which was 10,905, and I think that was up from about 8,000 the year before. If it carries on as it is at the moment, we're going to break the 11,000 mark. I mean, your bookkeepers are in such huge demand at the moment. And I was listening to another organisation the other day saying that they're finding it difficult to get clients. Just not getting that from you. And this is fantastic. And I think the ICB reputation, your reputation, is just getting out there. People are looking for you. They need some help. They don't want just help, they want proper help. So they don't want just a bookkeeper, they want an ICB bookkeeper, which is fantastic. So that's a real figure. That's not a salesman's lingo or anything else. That's come directly from the AML online system. 7,681 new clients since lockdown. I mean, that is fantastic. Well done. I know a few of you have, had your ups and downs a little bit over this period, and you've lost a few good clients that you're sorry to see missed. But the work is out there. We are still in huge demand, and we're trying to get some new people qualified as quickly as we can. We put a lot of hoops in their way, so it's not simple. It's not overnight, but anyway. So let me just check that isn't somebody else coming through.
Yeah, we've got one message from Susan Bruland. Hi, Susan. Says, I'm loving listening to you. I have received the newsletter today, but I didn't get the original one. So
yeah, no, I think it was a blip on our system. I think we overloaded it a little bit, but apologies for that. So it's still pretty good news, and we will still be bringing one out in September. I'm not sure when that is. I think that's next Thursday, is it? Something like that. But anyway, so I think the time has come for us to go. As Andy Pandy used to say, bye-bye.
And I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Jackie's not here
next
week.
I'm not here next week. I'm having a few days off.
We'll have some other technical advice person on, obviously nowhere near as good as Jackie.
Oh,
but
there are plenty, I'm sure.
All right. See you soon.
Okay, have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.